Did I spook you? Welcome to Dragon Age the Veilguard. Fooling everyone, or trying to. I don't know what the video is about. I have not kept up with the Dragon Age drama. It was one of those things I was like, you know what? I don't want to. So yeah, let's see what the video is about. Yippa. Let me hide those hips from Twitch. Alright.
I'm shocked. Genuinely. I can't believe it.
Take care as a wolf game.
Look, I do not care about any of the social political commentary that is surrounding Dragon Age the Veilguard right now, because all I think it does is distract from what we should be talking about. This is a customer first issue, and that is the most important thing. This is a publisher that knew that their game was divisive, that knew that this was a defining moment for a studio in recovery, and they made the wrong choice. You give review codes to all established reviewers or none. Simple as that. The minute...
What a joke. What a joke. I'm sorry, but that hasn't been the norm in so very long. You can get blacklisted just for saying the wrong thing.
That you start getting picky choosy with who you give those codes to, the minute that you start leaving room for doubt, is the minute that you have violated our trust, ruined the integrity of your game and of your brand. Not that there's really that much left for EA or BioWare anyway, but you...
I was gonna say, like, yeah, you think they're worrying about their brand right now? Oh, nah, that's been the case for so long, I'm not even surprised.
You do not deserve our money. You are not entitled to it. You have to earn it. And that's not what this is. The minute that you start going out and trying to shape and lead the conversation around a game in a certain direction is the minute that you have switched from earning our money to thieving.
Does this remind anyone of the Asmongold situation where he got banned off the subreddit for the game and his entire community? Like, they're clearly trying to shape the game in a certain way, man.
And that's exactly what this is. Today, what I want to do is I want to talk about access journalism, because that's exactly what this ends up being. I want to talk about why this actually happened, what happened, and more importantly, what this means in the future. This is something to pay attention to.
Do that, honestly.
Now, if you've been online, you've likely seen some discourse about how some creators and reviewers didn't receive review codes for Dragon Age the Veilguard. F Extra Life and Wolfheart FPS were some of the first to step forward. These are established creators with long-standing careers. They wouldn't step forward and say something if it wasn't for a good reason, and I want to talk about that. I want to shed light on the history and the motivations behind EA and BioWare for why they would want to limit access to this game. BioWare established itself as a leader in this genre through its commitment to some of the best storytelling that's out there and true choice and consequence. The impact of their earlier titles, Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, laid the groundwork for some of the design philosophies of games that we love today. Even with the successes that we've seen from Larian Studios' rendition of Baldur's Gate 3, many purists that are out there believe it doesn't even come close to the originals. With the introduction of the Dragon Age series, BioWare expanded upon the principles that it first set down, offering players complex moral dilemmas and rich character interactions that resonated on a personal level. There were no games that were like this at the time, making for some of the greatest games of all time.
I do wonder, partly, like, as a side note, because I'm curious and I want to get the idea out there. Is it the fact that because we didn't have a lot of comparison back then, that those stories remain and stand out to us so much more? Or are they really that great? Because I haven't played Baldur's Gate 1 or 2. Well, I haven't played 3 either. I do have it. I should play it. But, like, sometimes I do wonder if it's just rose-tinted glass view that we have over nostalgic and thinking that, oh my god, that is the best.
For many players, BioWare games were more than just entertainment. They were a means of exploring complex themes that were rarely explored in other games and engaging with characters in a way that felt truly authentic and relatable. The Dragon Age series, along with the Mass Effect series, are titles that not only carry a lot of recognition within the industry as pioneers in the RPG scene, but they hold a lot of value and meaning for the players. Some of their favorite memories, characters, and moments came from these games, and in many ways, these were the games that introduced them into the genre that they loved. As BioWare transitioned into the 2010s, the identity and the meaning behind the studio began to shift significantly. Despite successful releases like Mass Effect 3 and Dragon Age Inquisition, while these games still initially captured the essence of why fans loved BioWare, Deep storytelling, excellent gameplay, player expression, and character-driven narratives, players and critics started to notice a concerning trend. The studio's titles began to feel increasingly commercialized and generic, chasing trends in multiplayer with Mass Effect 3 and losing some of the unique charm that had defined some of their earlier works. This shift in focus became particularly evident with the release of Mass Effect Andromeda in 2017. Andromeda did not land well with fans. I was a huge Mass Effect fan. Andromeda was just a complete letdown, whether it was the technical issues, the pacing, the story, the characters. None of it had the heart of what made the series so popular to begin with. It just felt like a cheap, directionless knockoff.
I find it funny because Andromeda's the title that I know free creators that like I got to know over the past year that they love. So it's like, oh man. Oh, I guess for them, not having played the previous ones, right? And they were like introduced to it and we're like, wow, starry-eyed. That's what I say, right? It really depends how many games you've played, how many things you've gone through. That kind of shapes what you think of something. Because if it's your first game and you never saw anything else, you're going to be like, whoa, starry-eyed, right?
Critics at the time had pointed out that the game just felt like it was rushed or incomplete, which made a lot of people feel that the studio had lost its way. A sentiment that was later amplified by the subsequent release of Anthem. Anthem suffered from a lack of content, technical issues, and a confusing narrative that nobody could really even get into. The ambitious concept that they had initially just fell short. EA and BioWare, shortly after the game's release, had promised that they were going to be working on an overhaul that was called Anthem Next. However, this was ultimately shut down mid-development, and the game was effectively abandoned in place. Many believe that the essence of the studio was lost long before these releases, with the departure of both of their co-founders in 2012. Under their parent company, EA, which had already begun to devalue single-player experiences in favor of multiplayer and live service models, the studio's identity seemed to erode. Former EA CEO Andrew Wilson once stated that the future of games is in live service, indicating a clear pivot away from the single-player narratives that had defined BioWare's legacy. As they
one thing that people don't realize is there are only so many live service games that someone can be hooked on and can belong to. And the more there are, the less likely is that you're going to be the one that they pick. The future of gaming is money. Yeah. It's like streaming services, exactly, yeah. When it comes to streaming services, you want the one that has the most things that you want to watch. And then at best, you rotate between them. You're not going to be subscribed to all of them all the time. If you're even subscribed to them, because yeah, there are countless other ways to watch media.
Original developers and writers moved on. The sense of purpose that had once fueled and defined BioWare began to diminish. The studio, which had previously been a pillar of the RPG genre, now was starting to lose sight of who they were making their games for or what their franchises even were, resulting in fans losing faith in the studio and looking elsewhere for their games. Now, the reason why I'm bringing up the history of the company is because I'm trying to set the stage here. This is a really big deal. BioWare is a big deal. Regardless of their faults, the mistakes that they've made in the past, this is a brand that means a lot to a lot of people.
I want to point out the fact that Blizzard used to be a big deal, and look at the shell that they are right now. They literally butchered Overwatch just to change the monetization, and now they're going back to 6v6 Overwatch. Literally Overwatch. Just free to play with a different monetization style that makes them more money, and they took away the loot boxes. Like, I don't think we should look at the past of a company, personally. I don't think we should give a flying fudge that the company was once great. Because that's how they get away with this shit. Because you look at them and you're like, oh, but you did my childhood favorite games. You were my hero. No. Stop giving them excuses. Stop being like, they could do it again. You don't even know if they're the same people there. You don't know if, like, the directors retired, or if they got moved, or they got removed, or they left. It's like, the people make the company. The company, its name, doesn't mean jack shit.
And the industry itself, they laid the groundwork, the framework for many of the RPGs that we love today. If it wasn't for Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, we sure as the heck wouldn't have 3. I'll tell you that right now.
No? What kind of logic is that? You could just have Baldur's Gate stand alone. Like, I'm pretty sure we had D&D. I'm just like, but sure, what? Sure, they set the ground for title.
Mass Effect, Dragon Age, these are household names. These are games known around the world, whether or not people even played it. And if they did play it, they're likely in some of their greatest games of all time.
I find it funny because Dragon Age, well, first of all, Dragon Age made me hate AMD, but also I started hating Dragon Age as well because I had a PC that had 100% blocker on the main story in a cinematic that was unskippable. It took 8 months for them to release a patch for that. So all I remember of Dragon Age is the fact that I hate Origins. It's like, I hate it. I just hate it because I couldn't play it for 8 months because I wasn't a priority. So it was just like, that game is tainted for me. As much fun as it was, the bad experience overshadows the good one, which is kind of what I've been having a lot with companies, with big companies. I just see a lot of bad experiences. And as much as I love Overwatch 1, what they did to it, how they butchered my baby, how they changed the monetization just to earn more money, it's inexcusable. I don't wanna.
I remember when I played Dragon Age Origins for the first time, I had just come hot off the heels of Wrath of the Lich King. It was some of the best years in gaming. I fired that game up. It was like my imagination had just spilled out onto the screen. The game was gorgeous. The storytelling was something like I'd never even seen before. I could interact with companions. My choices actually mattered.
Was really
the RPG
fun.
mechanics, the loot, everything was perfect. It was such a fantastic game. But time moves on. Visionaries leave. The core team that they had is gone.
So why are we talking, if the core team is gone, why are we talking about the history of the company? Because it doesn't matter. Again, if the team's not there, then I'm sorry to tell you, all they're doing is having the title. They're just taking the title and butchering it, which is what's been happening in all these industries. Look what's been happening with Lord of the Rings. Look at the TV show. Look what they're doing to it. I'm just like, I don't get the whole, let's cut them slack. Not saying he's saying cut them slack, right? He's just saying that they had a good time before, like they had a good record. But that's because of the people there.
Founders are gone and the vision changes, the direction changes, and that's just kind of the way things go. Even though the sign is the same, well, the people inside aren't. And I think that's been one of the things that's kind of plagued that company ever since a lot of those people left. But with that said, Dragon Age the Veilguard, from EA's perspective, this was their time. This is their defining moment to bring back and resurrect this studio and put them back into the public spotlight because it's an important franchise for them. Dragon Age, Mass Effect, both of them are incredibly important. These are the biggest IPs that EA has outside of sports and Star Wars. They don't really actually own that one. Sims, Need for Speed.
I mean, both Sims and not FIFA. Like the sports. I don't know what it's called nowadays. Both of those are pretty damn huge for like their respective market.
These are a big deal. They need these games to succeed. They need them to find an audience, and they need that audience to buy it. And that's where the problem starts. Because you already have an audience that doesn't have a lot of faith in your game, and then you come out with some trailers that they didn't really like. So with their last few releases failing to meet the expectations of the fans, a fan-favorite studio now choosing to chase live service dollars with Anthem, then canceling that project altogether later, BioWare already stood on shaky ground. Players didn't really trust this company. While players were definitely excited when they saw that there was a game coming that was called Dragon Age Dreadwolf, the consensus was less about excitement and more about hoping that the game was going to be good and that the studio was going to be returning to its roots. You go back and scope out the comment section on the game's first trailer on YouTube, many of the players were cautiously excited to see where the story and the game was going, wishing that they could see gameplay in a trailer that set a serious tone and left much to be imagined. Fast forward a few months, and there is a huge announcement. The game is no longer called Dragon Age Dreadwolf. It is now The Veilguard, a title focusing less on the story of the antagonist and more on the party that's trying to stop him. A very superhero-sounding name, similar to the Avengers, which, lo and behold, seemed to embody the early teens energy of the trailer that followed. The trailer depicted
Kinda
none of the
accurate,
grit,
honestly.
consequence, or maturity that the series is known for. Instead, it felt more like an intro for a Disney movie with character art that was reminiscent of Pixar movies. It was upbeat, jovial, and embodied nothing that the fans of the franchise have come to expect from Dragon Age, and the trailer on YouTube was subsequently ratioed into oblivion.
Oh, holy shit, I did not know that this was so bad. Oh my god, they got ratioed so hard. Damn. Honestly though, like, you can't just throw out 4 characters and be like, look at our team, look at our new cast of characters, without like giving context. What made Dragon Age so cool was all the choices you had, all the connections, actual story. You can't just go like, oh look, I'm a Dragon Slayer, I'm a whatever, and be, yay, cool, I'm rooting for you. Couldn't care less.
Top comments like, I didn't know Disney bought BioWare. Who bait and switched my gory, mature, dark fantasy RPG for Guardians of the Galaxy meets Clash of Clans?
Gory, mature, dark fantasy RPG. We can't have that. They need the kids. Like, gory and mature is not encouraged by parents anymore. I don't know if you guys heard, okay? Gory and mature is like, big no-no. They gotta have cute, brightful, colorful, and you save the world. Just like Disney. I hate it here.
And my personal favorite, the most shocking thing is that BioWare let the comments open. On Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube, fans and critics panned the art style for its attempt to Fortnite Dragon Age. They felt like the entire essence of the series was lost, and skepticism around the game soared. Then I got curious, and I went back to see what games media's reaction to the fan backlash over the trailer was, and crickets. Nothing but completely ignoring the discourse from fans on social media, instead showing nothing but excitement, positivity, and zero skepticism.
Nice.
The closest thing that I could find was an article that was written about how players had felt that the game's theme song was bland and forgettable, and mentioning how apparently Veilguard is supposed to be a dark...
Yeah, you can shit on the music guy. Just not on the art team, and not on the writing team. The music's like crying in a corner. Sad violin playing.
And more consequential story than the rest of the series. A few months later, we would see Veilguard's gameplay reveal trailer, showing that they had cast aside fan concerns about the series slowly but surely moving away from the tactical elements that the game had in lieu of action combat. It featured some of the most awful UI designs that I've ever seen, something straight out of a mobile game. You couldn't control your other party members, but don't worry, they said you'll have your hands full with the main character. Only to show off completely generic and contrived combat that looks like it does more to distract than actually engage or entertain. Again, fans lamented, skeptics increased, and no mention of it was from the media, only excitement and positivity. Ever since this game's reveal, all you've seen is skeptical fans. The only conversations that I've seen regarding the pushback surrounding the game have been centered around social politics more than anything else. David Gator, the former writer for BioWare, took to social media pushing back against fan criticisms about how the game's female characters apparently weren't hot enough, and he just called the critics incels.
Wow. Lovely. Yes, if you don't like something, you must be an incel. I think that's the new favorite media word, incel. I'm seeing it more and more. Bruh, back in my day, we didn't call them incels. We had some class. We respected ourselves. Especially in journalism and media. Like, what is this? Alienate your audience even more, yeah.
Later responding to others claiming that Dragon Age had gone woke and called them tourists. Only
Oh my god. The usual suspects are upset. Sudden and unexpected development. Tourists. Wow.
Only eventually.
Do I like what I see? Not really. The art style leaves me a bit cold. I'm sure I'm gonna warm up to it eventually. Snorting some copium like, copium. The gameplay has changed. The news on choices gives me pause. But due to nostalgia, I'm not gonna stop. I'm still gonna chill and smoke some of my hopium.
Essentially, for him to give way and say that he felt conflicted on the game and that the art style leaves him feeling cold. I'll be straight with you. He is absolutely right. Dragon Age has always had progressive elements. Dragon Age Origins had same-sex relationships before gay marriage was even legal. With that said, I can't help but feel that these sort of discussions and criticisms are the low-hanging fruit opportunities to move away from critical discourse. At this point, obviously negative reception surrounding this game's cartoonish art style, its abandoning of socially mature themes, or its identity shift into action combat has been seen nowhere outside of YouTube videos and player discussions. Little to none of this is coming from industry professionals whose job it is to make sure that they are signal boosting player concerns and representing them.
Excuse me, when has journalism ever signal boosted player concerns? I thought they're being paid. They're being paid to be there for the companies. Oh, I don't know. It hasn't been the case in so long. I'm gonna sound so old right now, but ever since things moved digitally, I stopped reading reviews and news stuff of gaming. I would read it in magazines because, well, I had nothing better to do, and because at least that was a way to get the news. Kinda. But now anyone is a journalist. Anyone can don the mantle. Anyone can be a biased piece of shit. There is no anything to being a journalist anymore. It's a low-hanging fruit of nothingness. You're just literally paid, just like news medias. You're being paid by a side to cover their good side. And that's it. I don't know. I feel like before in magazines, at least we had a tiny bit more of a realistic type of journalism compared to now. Modern journalism is a joke. I don't even know why people still frequent those websites. I don't even know why they still have ad revenue and stay online. I just stop interacting with them altogether.
I find altogether off-putting ever since this game's
saying Origins was progressive back in the days doesn't mean jack shit. Honestly, it doesn't. Witcher 1, you could have beast sex, and you had a collect them all card game of your conquests. There are so many other games that allowed you to fuck around and find out, RPG-wise. That I'm just yeah, sure. Progressive, sure. If you didn't know any other games.
Announcement, it just feels like there's been a concerted effort to drown out genuine criticism with positivity and praise, something we've seen far too much in games media over the past few years, and I believe it's leading to a situation where communication is being lost. It is severing the connection between game creators and their intended audience. Now, I'm going to try to navigate this the best that I can. In previous videos, I brought up this idea that I think that genuine criticism is being shelved because of cultural commentary. Because everything has been wrapped up in cultural commentary more than anything else, identity politics and things like that. So what ends up happening is you have these two sides that are diametrically opposed. They cannot agree on anything. Their ideologies do not align, and as such, they cannot cede ground to the other party. As a result of that, they can't let the other party have a win. So they can't even talk about the things that otherwise they would talk about because they know that that other group is likely going to use that against them in the future. They don't want that situation whatsoever. And that's leading to writers not wanting to talk about art styles, not wanting to criticize the gameplay or the narrative or anything like that because...
Oh my god, my cat was I don't want to hear it. My cat is literally journalists. They're like, what'd you say? I can't hear you. I can't hear you over the wheel. It's too loud. Oh, perfect example. Paid actor right there.
From their perspective, right now for the writers and journalists, their true allies are the people that are making the games because they just can't stand the players anymore. And I get where they're coming from, by the way. I see things that annoy the shit out of me too, man. I see the posts on social media, people putting up a picture of Bunny with, the thigh highs or the fishnets on, asses hanging out, cleavage rolling out, all that good stuff. Yeah. And then saying this is what players want, and then putting it next to some stylized art of another character that makes no sense why you're even comparing these two things. Yeah, it's easy. It's low-hanging fruit, allowing developers and publishers and journalists to be able to say, well, we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to listen to these people and what they have to say because it's low-hanging fruit. It's an excuse for them to not have to engage. And I think with a lot of the commentary that we've seen over the last couple of years, well, it's getting easier for them day by day to be able to not engage whatsoever with what players are saying or players are thinking. And in some cases, they're not wrong to do so because, I mean, let's be real. Do we really think every single video game character needs to look like Bunny from The First Descendant? No, absolutely not. That's definitely not the case. And while there are people that are out there that'll post that stuff on social media and it gets, hundreds of thousands of likes because it's social media, well, it detracts from the overall conversation. I don't like that it's out there sometimes because what ends up happening is they're just using it as an excuse to not have to engage with us.
I think it's perfectly okay for people to post that and that they should engage with it because they do engage with it. They engage with it when it's convenient for them. When the sexy is preferably androgynous, where the sexy is completely different than what the sexy used to be. And again, what is wrong with engaging with it on that level? I don't know. I don't understand the problem with that. Oh no, the character is being sexualized. Oh, and you're not doing that by plastering his sexuality or her sexuality on display. Really? I was just like, oh, yes, you're taking such a morally superior road right there. It's like, this also detracts from the conversation. Like, they're not reporting what players are saying because they're being paid not to. It's as simple as that. It doesn't matter what the player are saying. They're just being paid not to. They're being paid to look the other way. They're being paid to stick to a narrative by a certain side that is paying more than another side.
But what they fail to realize, journalists specifically, you have a job to do. You have an audience to serve.
A job? An audience? No. That I think like that's the part where there's the dissonance, right? Where the friction is happening. That we still expect journalists to act like journalists. I think like that is the problem. We still expect a certain level and we're not getting that level. And it's been happening for quite a while now. Yeah, their job is not to report on the truth. Their job isn't to actually cover the truth. Their job is make money for the company that hired them. Their job is to make their quota on articles. Like, that ship sailed a long time ago. We do not have good journalists. I'm sorry. To be fair, I don't keep up with gaming media, but every time I look at those titles, I want to barf, and they're just clickbait, and I just don't want to engage with them or read them. So perhaps there is a good journalist out there, but yeah. If they are, well, I'm sorry, the algorithm is also designed in a way to show the clickbait controversial piece of crap articles over the good ones. Because if it's a good article, you're not going to comment on it, upvote it, say, oh my god, this is so good. Well, you might now because there are so few. But if it's a shit one, you're probably going to comment, you're going to engage with it, right? So, yeah, I wonder why people are just chasing the money.
This isn't about alliances. This isn't about anything like that. And you shouldn't be trying to get closer to the people that are making the products, because the closer you get to them and the further away you get from us, well, that doesn't work well for the customer.
What is this, EU? I'm sorry, sir. That's EU thinking, where the customer has rights. In America, you eat the slop that they give you, okay? You eat the slop and you like it and you ask for seconds and you be a good boy and listen to mommy. Oh god, that made me cringe just saying it.
Back in September, creators and journalists were invited to play a vertical slice of Dragon Age the Veilguard. Many came back from the event feeling positive, while others were expressing some level of skepticism. It's about what you would think. Some players liked it, others didn't. This entry is incredibly divisive, as they've made wide-sweeping changes to the overall tone, look, and feel of the game, while at the exact same time, keep in mind that customer expectations will be exponentially more difficult to meet after the release of Baldur's Gate 3. The bar has been raised. Now here we are, nearing the release of the game, and Wolfart FPS and later F Extra Life revealed that they did not receive review keys for the game. Wolfart FPS wrote on Twitter saying, 3 creators, including myself, were a bit more critical than others with our hands-on time with Dragon Age the Veilguard. Not a single one of us will be getting review codes in time to actually give our opinions before release. Just a thought that I would throw out there. Please keep in mind, folks, that this does not mean that my more critical opinion is better or more truthful than those who have been more positive. I'm just simply pointing out how marketing works. This also doesn't mean the game will be bad, but it's something to consider. So those who were granted access were primarily creators who had previously expressed some type of positive sentiments about Dragon Age the Veilguard, which raises some pretty serious concerns for access journalism.
It's always been the case, or rather, it's been the case for a very long time. Like, I got denied access to certain betas and early access to content simply because I speak the truth and I do not sign any contracts that force me to not speak my mind. If a contract goes like, you're not allowed to say anything bad, I'm like, I don't care, I'm not signing it. So yeah, it's been the case quite often where if you are not liked by the developer or if you're saying bad things about them, they're just gonna not work with you.
This practice isn't new. Similar situations have unfolded with high-profile releases like Cyberpunk 2077, where selective access led players to making purchasing decisions based on false pretenses. Now, after these posts went up, reviews began to flood in for the Veilguard, major media outlets lauding it as a return to form for BioWare, saying that it could stand next to Baldur's Gate 3, awarding it high scores, 8s, 9s, 10s. Heck, this might be Game of the Year. However, all of this extreme positivity sharply contrasts with much of the skepticism that we've seen from fans up until this game's release. Now, conversely, SkillUp, who has historically been pretty even-handed with most of his reviews, posted a review for the Veilguard that damn near to the T describes the game that many players feared that Dragon Age would be. I'll be honest with you, SkillUp is one of my first inspirations. I have a ton of respect for the guy. His wordcraft is insane, and even if you don't agree with his opinions, you can still at least see where he's coming from. His reviews stay pretty clean of any social commentary. He just focuses on the experience of playing the game. SkillUp's critique painted a completely different picture than any of the major publications, highlighting this game's inability to facilitate any meaningful choices or genuine interactions with party members. He noted that conversations felt more akin to parent-child dialogue than engaging conversations, making it feel as though HR was in the room with the writing team. He commented further on how the combat lacked any real depth, the art direction and character design took away from the game's overall themes, and altogether, the game felt like a generic offering, a far cry from what the series once stood for, and also a far cry from many of the reviews that we've seen from major publications. When players took notice of this, immediately we saw pushback from media outlets and talking heads on Twitter. Critics that were quick to dismiss any concerns about access journalism, instead framing it as unfounded conspiracy theories and a spawn of identity politics.
It's kind of funny because all conspiracy theories have a root of truth in them. So just dismissing it is like, oh, so there is something there. They just didn't hit the exact mark as to what was there.
Even when I tried to make any attempt to engage in balanced discussion, I had made a post just specifically talking about curated review scores, nothing about diversity or identity. I was immediately met with accusations of bigotry and racism. Put ideological differences aside for just a few minutes. Clear your mind. You can look and see that there is something wrong with how this game was released for review, and you can't help but feel it was done on purpose. For all intents and purposes, up until this point, this looked like a generic offering. Players were critical of it in its previews. Discourse around the game has never been positive. The studio needs to prove itself. The company needs the game to do well. Reviewers then, subsequently, did not get access if they were critical of the game. And while we have seen some negative reviews surface, only 4 out of 56 reviews at the moment of recording this video gave the game below a 7. We're seeing 9s and 10s from major publications and others that I don't even recognize. Reviews that are scoring just under that in the high 8s are using the same language and same impressions that we're seeing in the higher scored reviews, which makes a lot of sense as though Ziff Davis owns the wide majority of these games media companies, each of these publications having multiple subsidiaries, all of them echoing the exact same message. From my perspective, this looks like an obvious case of access journalism and culturing review scores to manipulate customers into buying something that they would otherwise have avoided.
I don't personally understand the whole part of shooting yourself in the leg with not giving access to everyone. Like, if your game is good, there's nothing that you should be afraid of. You should stand by your game. You should believe in your game. You shouldn't coddle it, baby it, and shield it as if it's a toddler that needs protection from Mama Bear. Why do people trust journalists? I don't know, man. I'm gonna be honest, I do not know. And a lot of people find one YouTuber that they trust more, like as a reviewer, one that they gel with, and they usually go with that. But I never understood why you trust publications like that. They want new people and new blood, right?
Reviews are sacred. They act as a beacon of honesty and insight in a world that is flooded with choices. They are meant to illustrate the qualities of a game, guiding players through a labyrinth of hype and marketing noise. When reviews are influenced or manipulated, it doesn't just betray the trust between creators and consumers, it robs players of their autonomy. This leaves us vulnerable. What I am seeing now is a world in which CEOs and marketing departments who spend millions of dollars a year on gambling addiction and social manipulation research are now influencing the one safe haven that customers have to be able to choose to spend their money wisely. All because these companies feel that they are entitled to our money.
I feel like this is something that you can also combat as a person, though. I do agree, don't get me wrong, I do agree with his perspective that it is influencing customers. But also, it's a single-player game. Just freaking wait until a YouTuber you trust reviews it properly. Just wait until the people that didn't get a press code are playing it. Alternatively, if you think you can make your mind within the 2 hours, where you can buy and refund it on Steam. I feel like there's also this whole thing that's got created with FOMO, not wanting to be spoiled, not wanting to be behind, not wanting to miss a launch, the hype, the talk, right? I feel like this all culminates in making yourself more susceptible to companies like this taking advantage of you. Like, that is the part for me that I think people need to take a step back and analyze, why are you in such a rush to pre-order or to order the game and play it at release? Because it plays into their hands so well. Will you play the new Dragon Age? I don't know. I can buy it and play it and tell you my opinion of it.
You know, I realize that there's going to be some people that are in the comments or reposting this video or throwing it up on, I don't know, r/circle jerk or something like that. And they're going to say something along the lines of, well, maybe it wasn't done on purpose. And the funny thing is the outcome is still the exact same, because that means that the players, the customers, being informed was never a priority for them.
This age like fine milk. Dude, like this video was made way before Asmon's entire community got banned. But they banned an entire community subreddit from the Dragon Age subreddit because they want to focus on the game and not on wars, quote unquote. I'm just like, oh yeah, clearly it wasn't done on purpose. Absolutely, clearly not. Not at all. Yet people that have concerns or that might have criticized the game, like hell, Asmon just got banned for saying he can't wait to play the game. It's insane. It's like, excuse me. No, this was totally done on purpose. And it's a thing that happens quite often. You, as a content creator, are afraid to speak up against a company because it will sour your relationships. Because you might not actually get a review code again. You might not get invited, right? And it creates this type of like wanting to not be too harsh, not be too critical, not express your opinion. So even the people that are slightly on the more critical side that gave a 7, right? You can't really trust that they actually think like that. You can't trust that they didn't mellow their words or pad it up just because, you know, they're afraid. So it leads to a situation where at least this is getting exposed and talked about, right? At least people are being informed of over the fact that it's happening. It's been happening quite a lot, but it happens more and more lately.
And that doesn't make sense if your game is good. Because
exactly.
I remember when Baldur's Gate 3 was about to come out, they wanted to make sure they got that game into everybody's hands.
Dude, Baldur's Gate 3 just literally said you can you can fucking bear form. It's like, people didn't need anything else. It didn't matter what else when it was the game. Everyone was like, oh yay! I'm gonna make a druid.
Netflix, they knew exactly what they were sitting on. They knew that game could do well as long as players played it or players saw it, which leads me to believe.
I mean, they also had an extensive early access of the first act, right? They had it for what, 6 years? Like, there's a difference between people making good games and being open about it and being sure and standing by the product, and then the people that are just trying to milk you for every penny. Like, there is a huge difference that is very noticeable with a lot of titles nowadays. And that's a huge problem that we're having. They're trying to milk you for every penny nowadays. So when you find games like Baldur's Gate that sets the tone, people are like criticizing, saying like, don't expect the same level of quality. Why not? You're a AAA. You have way bigger budget than a lot of other studios. Why shouldn't we expect that?
That this is not a case of somebody forgetting to send out a couple codes. Instead, this is a publisher and a studio that wanted to curb criticism just slightly before the game's release to make sure that they could capitalize on some early sales. That's what I'm seeing. You know, I look at a lot of the discourse that's been surrounding this game and surrounding a bit of this controversy here, and all I gotta say is that I think that these marketing departments are eating good right now. This is perfect for them. Are you kidding me? You have two ideologically opposed sides that are screaming their heads off. You got one side that's talking about how it's a BlackRock conspiracy, while the other one are viewing a product as an ally. It's beautiful. You couldn't draw that up any better. Somebody's been reading some Sun Tzu, some Art of War.
Oh,
as a marketing major, you couldn't ask for anything better than this. Are you kidding me? They're not even talking about the potential of the game being a victim of access journalism. They're too busy bickering about their social political positions and their beliefs more than anything else. Man, that is beautiful. Couldn't ask for anything better than that.
Beautiful.
You know, I saw a couple people that were saying things like, you know, if the reviewer likes the game and I like the game, then they're truthful. If the reviewer doesn't like the game and I like the game, then they're lying. If the reviewer likes the game and I don't like the game, then they're a shill. And while there are some examples of that where you will see people believe those kind of things, I don't think that's the case for this. And I also, it's a matter of reading the room. There is nothing up until this point that ever showed that this game was going to be a game that was going to subvert your expectations and be this absolutely insane game, and everybody was completely wrong about it being bad. That never looked that way. It never has. And that's why it makes it so hard to believe that it could be anything else than what I think it is. And even more so are we to say that SkillUp wrote a fake review, that he lied about his impressions of the game and how it very accurately depicts exactly what a lot of people believe this game was going to be. That doesn't make a lot of sense. I think all of this is going to come to light as more reviews come forth. The most positive reviewers got access to the game before anybody else, and those with anything critical to say will come afterwards. While there is already some variance in review scores, if you actually go and look, the game is an 82 on Metacritic with 77% of people recommending it. What's really odd about this is that even those middle-of-the-road review scores, those mid to high 7s, are still using the exact same language, and it just doesn't feel authentic. The criticisms are the exact same, but the way that they're wording things, it just feels like this is actually a 10 out of 10 review, but the score is only a 7.
Have you considered that they're all using AI? Have you considered that they all used AI to write that?
It makes it feel as though they're just padding the floor to make it look like there's parity. Regardless, I do think that the scales are going to tip even further once the game is released into the wild, because we're going to get more players that can actually access it, and player reviews are the ones that are likely going to tell the story. And it's like I tell everybody all the time, wait for Steam reviews.
Yeah, or just the press package, that is true. But yeah, just wait for reviews. Read the reviews from Steam. Trust whoever is your go-to YouTuber, if you have one. Like, I don't usually. Like, what happens is I look at a game and I'm like, I make the decision to spend the money, and I live with that choice. Like, I do not refund games. Take Starfield, for example. It's like $100. I hate that game. I played it 32 hours. I hate that game. I gave it 32. After 6 hours, I didn't want to play it, but chat was like, it's a Bethesda game. You can't judge it after only 6 hours. You gotta give it more time. So I gave it more time. I gave it 32 hours. And people were like, and you didn't do the interesting side content, Pause. There's this like specific mission. You need to do that one. That one's really good. You did the boring ones. And I'm like, bruh, please snort some copium somewhere else. It's fine, okay? I gave it 32 hours of my life. I do not want to give it more. So it's always been like that for me with video games, because I don't watch reviews or read them or like care, right? If I make a decision to try something, I try it and I live with that. I learn from it, right? Oh. But hey, I learned by buying Starfield that I do not like Bethesda games. I mean, I was 95% sure I don't like Bethesda games when I played Fallout 4 and I found it to be absolutely boring. And I finished the game and I was like, wow. Oh, Reggie's been doing a great job of making me want to play the game with mods, though. Like, hands down, Fallout 4 with mods looks super fun. But yeah, it's one of those where I'm just like, I don't have the time to sit around and mod my games. I don't have the patience for that either. So they're not for me. They're just not for me, right? I learned a lesson. It was an expensive $100 lesson, but I learned a lesson. So same with like Dragon Age, right? And before I get a main quest, a main quest blocker that just crashes again and I get PTSD from it. That would be the cherry. That would be the cherry on top of the cake, man. Oh.
I mean, we're already starting to see the team behind Mass Effect 5 distancing themselves from Dragon Age the Veilguard. Michael Gamble, the game's project director, wrote on Twitter, "Lots of people asking me about Mass Effect now that Veilguard reviews are out. And October 31st is close. Both are from the studio, but Mass Effect is Mass Effect. How you bring a sci-fi RPG to life is different than other genres or IPs, and it has to have different kinds of love." A user responded, "Please don't Pixar Mass Effect like you guys did with Dragon Age." To which Gamble replied, "I'm not sure I agree with the Pixar thing, but Mass Effect is photorealistic and will be as long as I'm running it." And to be honest, the way that that's worded leaves me to believe that he was actually pressured to use a similar art style as Veilguard, but like a good leader, held to his vision. Now, because so many people want to turn any type of criticism towards this game into a personal attack on the people that made it or the identities that people feel are represented by this game, I have something to say. Up until this video, I have made no mention whatsoever about the messaging behind the Veilguard. When I first watched the trailer, the themes and the Marvel movie aesthetic just turned me off entirely. The game bored me just by watching it. And the dialogue between characters lacked any of that human quality or nuance that I've seen in other previous entries or in Baldur's Gate 3, which definitely has shaped my opinion on these type of games. When I looked at this game, it overall just looked like a generic offering that was going to give me nothing but quips, zero nuance, and garbage gameplay. So
Ah, yes. Modern gaming where you just get some quips out there. The writing. Ah. Honestly, like, when it comes to Dragon Age, I looked at the first trailer and I was like, it's good. Not what I expected. I was kind of like on the fence of it. I was just like, I don't know. I don't get the same vibe, right? But I chucked it to me just being, me just being old, right? And having in mind other games and other stuff. So I was like, I don't know. I could give it a try.
Something that I have come to expect from EA, and I think a lot of other people have too. When people in my audience wanted to criticize the game and write it off because of the identity or beliefs of the game's director, Corinne Bush, I pushed back on my own audience, saying that you can only judge people based on their previous works. For me, seeing Corinne had only worked on the Sims games before Dragon Age, I could see that influence and lack of audience perspective throughout all of Dragon Age the Veilguard. The art style...
Well, if she worked on The Sims, that means that potentially she worked on the inclusivity of The Sims, because Sims went very much on trying it's hardest to be as inclusive as possible. I'm not saying as a bad thing. There have been like really cool development alongside actual creators, like working with people from the community to deliver on it. How do you go from The Sims to Dragon Age? That is a good question, especially an action-focused Dragon Age. But like, if her role is that of someone that was meant to bring inclusivity, right? Perhaps that is something that she was charged with, right?
The tonal shift, the way that characters interact with each other, and the fact that BioWare believed that this is going to be the darkest story in the franchise. It all makes sense when you look at the project history of its director. This is not a strike against who someone is, it's by the merit of the work that they have done. And that's how games should be judged. As I've always said, do not follow franchises, studios, or publishers. Follow directors that have proven that they can lead and deliver projects and games that you enjoy. So what do I think happened here, and ultimately what is going to be the outcome? I think that EA and BioWare desperately wanted to protect the image of this game because they saw all year round that this game was drug alongside a bunch of other failed games, and many other players believed that this game would be the same.
I need to get this off my chest. They did think it's gonna be gory and gritty because just like in The Sims, you know, you get into a swimming pool and you take away the ladder. That's the level of gory grittiness that we're gonna get. Maybe that's why they went from The Sims here, you know? Oh man. Correct me if I'm wrong, The Sims doesn't have a story. I think they have some sort of story thing nowadays, but I don't know. I don't keep up with The Sims stuff either.
It's impossible for EA not to read the room. In an act to try to regain some trust, they ended up removing de novo. Getting rid of that would bring in some players, and it's a real quick, easy PR win. People don't like de novo.
True.
Then they watched creator reactions at the preview event. They picked some of the creators that had the best impressions, and that's who they gave the game. Marketing departments aren't stupid. They know that legacy media is swirling the drain, and the best way to reach players is through content creators. They knew that they didn't have to withhold reviews from games media because, well, more or less, they're just an echo chamber, and they won't give anything less than a 7 unless it's the day before. I think they planned it. I think it worked, and it worked a little bit too effectively, and the audience was expecting a really divisive game, and instead they were met with eerily too much positivity. You know, in the coming weeks, I think what's going to end up happening is we're going to see a major contrast between player reception and the media's perception of the game. It's going to be entirely different. Review scores are going to be all over the place because I think when you make a game that's as divisive as this game is, not just like with its themes, but like the art styles change, the whole game has changed. It's not even Dragon Age in my eyes. I realize that's a popular term people have used for Dragon Age games over the years, but in this case, it really does feel that way. And I hate seeing stuff like this happen because this is a direct attack on your wallet. This is something that everybody should be able to band together, talk about, and say, hey, we don't want this happening. Why didn't you give everybody review codes? You should be able to put any like political ideologies or social ideologies aside and just focus on trying to protect yourself as a consumer because that's the most important thing at the end of the day. It's one of the things that I try to make sure that I'm preaching the most on this channel more than anything else, and that's trying to make sure that we're protected as consumers because I've said it in other videos, I think that this is the last vestige of industries that we can still protect ourselves in.
I'm not so sure about that one. Honestly.
And it sucks to see how this conversation can get out of hand so quickly. I do really think that they did this on purpose. It's kind of impossible for them not to have. It's way too obvious. It's just way too obvious. And
it's insane to me that huge creators are not getting a copy. Like, there is no reason for that to happen unless you're blacklisting that creator. Whether it's from them being harsh or you not liking their review or their choice, right? It's something that will scream and off-put people. As it should, because, like, again, if you think your game is great, you stand by your game. You don't, like, try to hide it.
I'm hoping this opens the eyes of a lot of people and they come to realize that professional media, legacy media more than anything else is not to be trusted. Review scores are not to be trusted. Hell, even content creators, to be honest with you. Even if I review a game, you shouldn't be just trusting whatever I say. if I like it, that doesn't mean that you're gonna like it. Maybe I'm paid. I'm kidding. I wouldn't want to do that because that shit's illegal. I'm too scared of doing illegal things. But yeah, you need to wait for other players to play it. It's like I always said, wait for Steam reviews. Steam reviews are the best place to go. Even if you're not playing on Steam, it doesn't matter. You can still make an account, log in, look at the game, see what players are reviewing it at, and then you'll get a pretty damn good idea of what that game is like and whether or not it's something that you're going to enjoy. And if it's something that's down in the mixed ratings, unless there was some crazy controversy that happened that made the player base mad, it's probably not a very good video game. It's probably just decent. That's kind of what I thought that this game was going to end up being. I figured it was just going to be a generic video game. Not good, not great, just a video game.
I mean, they definitely have
that
the
nobody's
budget.
really going to connect to. It's going to ultimately not meet the expectations of the long franchise fans or anything like that.
Isn't that
it'll be done and forgotten within a month or so, or something like that.
Isn't
Ironically,
that a common
that's what
theme,
they said
man?
about Black Myth Wukong, but that didn't happen. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys got some value out of it.
I think, personally, like, my personal opinion of it, I think it's gonna do well because it's flashy. It seems to have, like, a faster paced combat for people. It's a simplified combat. It's less in terms of having choices and moral stuff, but a lot of people don't have the patience for tactics, which is sad. But I think it's going to do well with a certain audience in mind. Like, it's not going to do exceptionally well. It's not going to be Game of the Year. I do agree that I don't think it will meet expectations. But I think it's just going to be like a generic game that people are going to play. They're going to be like, I had some fun, and move on from it, right? And then it's going to be forgotten and buried somewhere. It's currently sitting at 73% on Steam. Yeah, I mean, it just released, so, like, I do expect people to give it more time before that. Because I looked and there were only, like, 1,000 reviews when I looked at it. When I looked initially before the video, it was mixed. So, people are definitely, like, slowly trickling in with their own thoughts on it. It will take some time. Like, it's only been out for a few hours now. Most people are still playing it. Oh. Only until you realize they're removing the negative reviews. Oh my god, it would honestly not shock me. Oh, wouldn't that be crazy? But yeah, it's honestly like a case of them trying something and being afraid of their choice, of not being confident in their work, which is sad to see. Regardless of what the game is, regardless of their agenda, it is sad to see that we have entire teams that do not believe in their product. Like, what kind of message does that send to you? To me, it sounds like it wasn't made with love, and it wasn't made with consumers in mind, and it wasn't made to leave a long-standing note. It was just made to meet quota, which is sad.
Try not to bicker among yourselves too much. Try to make sure you guys are focusing on protecting yourselves. Outside of that, my friends, I am starving. I'm gonna get some food in me. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe. Follow me on Twitch if you guys want to see me. The cat hair just like flew off my hand. If you guys want to catch me live on Twitch, you guys can see my cat more there. See you guys later.
It's legendary_drops. For those who don't see it. Peace to you too. I appreciate the video and the fact that it brings to light the fact that they do not give review codes to everyone, like from the big creators. It's helpful to know of situations like this, honestly, for me. So, yeah. Hopefully we can see a bit more of the situation in 1-2 days when the dust settles.